So these are the first couple of plates that we're going to put on the boat. This is the port side, that's the starboard side, and we're going to make a continuous weld along this seam here to join the two plates together. And we're using this angle as like a strong back to make sure that we get the two lined up perfectly. So the first bit of actual boat building we had to do was the bottom plates, and these are made of 4 large plates of steel. I think it was 5mm thick, and the port and the starboard side are assembled from their front and back halves on the floor, and then they're both put onto the bilge cradles where they can be joined together. Each side assembled was about 35 feet long. 2 of those in front of the bilge cradle, plus enough space to flip them both over for welding, meant that we were taking up a lot of space in the shed. So we were very conscious that with the harvest coming up we had to get stuff done and get these plates onto the cradle so we were out the way a bit more. Don't have too many clamps. We're going to get the two things together. We use this long bits of angle to clamp down, so we've got a bit underneath and a bit on top. To clamp down on these bits of angle so that the whole thing was level. And then we just put some tack welds in on top. We're now going to turn the whole thing over and weld the other side, and then we'll flip it back over, chop these off and weld it up on this side as well. Having tacked the other side, we then flip the plate over and we're just going to grind back like this using the grinder to get clean metal so we can see through into the tacks. And this way we can weld right the way through. It's like beveling the plates really, and we can weld right the way through to these tacks and make sure that we've got full penetration. For me, this is the first bit of welding that we're going to be doing on the boat, and I was worried that when we lifted the plates, if I hadn't welded enough, then we might see the kind of join start to flex or maybe even bend a little bit. So I welded the whole seam. In hindsight, I probably would have welded slightly less. I reckon actually probably 5 4-inch welds would have been enough to hold the whole thing, lifting it into place, and that would have meant that it was more flexible and had less distortion when it was on the bilge cradles. Lifting the plates from the floor onto the bilge cradle was definitely nerve-wracking. They're really long and quite flexible, and they weigh quite a lot, so it was pretty cumbersome. And we did actually have one of the plates fall off of the JCB forks and onto the floor at one point. Luckily no harm was done, and we were both standing well out of the way for it. With both of the bottom plates on the bilge cradles, we then had to line them up forward and back. So on the plates there are printed markings to show you where each of the bulkheads or frames are going to go at a later date. And the bilge cradles are meant to go under frame 2, bulkhead at station 5, and then the frame 8. So then lining those up, we could bring the two centres together and tack weld them together. We actually need to get the ends lined up. So you see that's gone squiff again. That one slid down.
Yeah, I think I could just pull it.
You think you could just pull it?
Yeah.
I'd love to see this. Yeah, it needs to go like the same as the other one. Yeah, you got it, Emmy.
I feel like it just moved though. Like easily. Nope.
So, moving that steel on your own, not possible really.
Nope.
You probably see from the time lapse that the centre line of both plates kind of moves outwards towards the ends, and as you bring the sides together it kind of forms a 3D shape, kind of like an origami style thing, and that's what gives the bottom plates their sort of 3D shape. So we did this by slinging a chain hoist underneath both of the plates and attaching it at the two outside edges, and then as you winch in the centre comes together and that kind of induces a 3D shape. So then where the plates are touching in the middle, you can just tack them together and then move the chain hoist further along. We worked from the middle of the boat out towards each end. We actually found at the back of the boat that the weight of plates overhanging the back cradle meant that we had to lift them with the gantry. And you'll probably see here that we used a couple of different methods. Now, we're quite unfamiliar with I don't know, all this sort of heavy lifting and stuff, and that's something that we learned a lot about. You'll see in various videos, different ways we try stuff. That sort of stuff really has been a learning process, and yeah, probably one of the things we learn the most about is kind of how to use what you've got to manipulate large bits of steel. So we probably had tacks placed about every 10 inches along the centre line, and we weren't shy about making quite large tacks. There's obviously quite a lot of strain holding the whole thing in a sort of 3D shape there. Something we didn't know then, but we found out later, was that the angle of our bottom plates at the transom just was a bit too steep, and I wish I'd known back then that I should have probably taken a cardboard template from the transom plate and just used it to check that angle. And that is one of the advantages of building from a kit, is that you've got other pieces which can act kind of like a jig or a sort of template to help you figure out whether you've got things right. Yeah, when we're getting the bow joined together, they actually ended up kind of overlapping a little bit at the plates there on our first go, and that was because the stern hadn't been put together yet, and the tension along the outside edges meant that the front edge had overlapped. So that sorted itself out once we went further back and tacked it together. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.
So the holes are access holes for the keel. So we'll be putting some lead. What are they called? Piglets.
Ingots.
Ingots. Pigs. They are also called pigs.
Oh, piglets.
Can we call them piglets?
Yeah, okay.
So we need, what is it, 3.5 tons of lead. End up going through these little holes.
Hello and welcome to our channel. Man, it feels weird having a haircut like this. Just like, that's me.